Save it for the pod is what I always like to say. All right, and we're looking good right now. Okay. All right, here we go. Salute to Knicks Nation on this December 1st already, Monday. Another edition of Knicks Weekly, episode 136. CP the Fanchise in the building. On today's show, we got our guy, man, friend of the program, returning to the show. You can catch him covering world soccer for a number of networks. Diehard Knicks super fan. Our guy Luis Miguel Echegaray is in the building, man. On today's show, we're going to recap the Knicks 4-0 week. Knicks headed to second place in the East. We got to talk about Josh Hart, man. Josh Hart heating up, and take a look at the week ahead for the Knicks because it's going to get a little bit tougher. Call us up on the KFTV Discord. Let us know your thoughts. And as usual, man, lock in, hit the like button, hit the share button, and subscribe to the channel. My guy, Luis, how we feeling, man? 4-0. Talk to me, man. How we doing?
CP, it's a good way to end Thanksgiving, right? Giving more thanks to the beautiful New York Knicks. I mean, 4-0. Sunday night was just, to me, a perfect example of what this team represents. It's really great to see them. I know we're going to get into it, but it's great to be back. It's my third time here,
yeah.
CP. I want to keep building those numbers, baby.
You got to, man. Well, the fans love your energy, man. They love your insight, so only natural that we get you back in here. We're always, communicating on Instagram whenever things are going on with the Knicks, so you already know, man, it's always a pleasure to have you back on. So, Knicks start off the week. They get wins over the Hornets, the Nets to finish off the road trip, if you will, and then big Milwaukee Bucks showdown, NBA Cup qualifier. They knock the Bucks out, get revenge, and then, as you say, cap it off Sunday with a win over the Raptors. So what'd you think about the next week?
The Knicks week was obviously a productive week, a great week. And I think, especially from what I saw in the latter stages, especially from what I saw on Sunday night, this is what I want the Mike Brown system to look like. All right, especially on that Sunday night. The bench was also productive, but every starter, CP, hit double figures. You mentioned Josh Hart. When he plays and he starts, the Knicks usually win and play well. He's feeling better. He's feeling healthy. He was unbelievable on Sunday night as well. That game also had 25 offensive rebounds. Some teams don't do that in multiple games. That's just the ability of what I'm seeing right now. Dedication, communication, effort. Mitchell Robinson, he had 15 rebounds in 17 minutes on Sunday night against Toronto. But when you look back earlier in the week, I think that a big note here is to remember that we're doing this, CP, without OG Anunoby and most recently without Landry Shamet, meaning that players, especially from the bench, have to represent, have to do something. I remember in the previous episode when we were previewing the season, I said to you about how important Deuce McBride was going to be. Well, he led in minutes on Sunday night. Against the Bucks, he also played really well as well. I think he scored about 19 points. Against the Hornets, Hart again with 22 points, Deuce with 19. The bench heavily contributed. At least 9 players in that game against the Hornets, CP, had at least 12 minutes. So that means, right, that obviously Jalen Brunson is the captain. He's the key. He's the leader. I think Cat is also doing his thing, although not as much as Brunson. But overall, CP, what I like is that the entire roster is working. And that's what we wanted from a Mike Brown introduction, right? So I'm very happy.
Yeah, it's, Monica McNutt said it on last night's after the Knicks beat the Raptors. She said it on the telecast. She said everybody is really just starring in their role, right? Like, Cap is Cap. He's dominating as usual. He had a phenomenal week. Josh Hart, we talk about Josh Hart being inserted into the lineup, and whether it's the starters or the bench, he just looks refreshed. And Mikal Bridges in his role, Mitchell Robinson, as you said, dominating the boards in the win over the Raptors with 15. I thought that was a big factor, and the Knicks really wearing them down in the second half of Sunday night's win, and the Knicks really pulling away in that second half. So, Deuce, red hot from downtown, 60% from three. So, everybody's really just playing their role. They're slotting in. And what we see is especially for me, I'm always looking at the defense. I'm always looking at what this team is doing defensively. And since that Magic game, I was there that last Saturday when they got embarrassed. They got dragged across the bar once again, and their defense was horrendous, but they took accountability for it. From the coach, the players, everybody saw that they can't have it. And so they did talk about the fact that they did a lot of film study. Deuce did. Deuce mentioned that in last night's game, that they studied a lot of film, went back, and you can see a much more spirited defensive effort from these guys, and they rose up a little bit this week in the defensive rating. I think they are up to 12th right now in defensive rating, third in offense, and combine that's a plus 7.4 net rating. That's fourth in the NBA.
Yeah, and then when you think about it overall in the last few seasons, that's a remarkable achievement. And, there's still things to improve. I mean, many players have talked about that. Mike Brown has talked about it. But you mentioned a really good point here, CP, because ultimately the cliche saying, defense wins you championships, and it's true in this very case. We always know that a Mike Brown offense is going to give you looks. You're always going to try and hit that 3-point average. You're always going to move the rock. You're always going to want to score points. But defensively that's really going to make something, especially for a Knicks side that still needs to improve away from Madison Square Garden, because obviously we know that now the Mecca is becoming quite a fortress. But I'm more interested, as you said, in what we do without the ball. That's a key thing. And there was a great piece in The Athletic from James Edwards III about, sort of like what are the little things that are being done in order to make sure that the Knicks are better defensively. So, off-ball defense, like making sure that you don't allow an open man to take an easy shot. Make sure there's communication, especially on Sunday night against Toronto. You saw that a lot, right? There was a lot of communications. Mikal Bridges, we know how good he is, but just the fact that he's also directing, for example, Tyler Kolic to make sure that he looks at the wing and make sure there's no opportunities for Toronto to do anything. That's getting much better because it wasn't as good at the beginning of the season. And that's going to be key, because my biggest asterisk right now is two things. One is let's be good on the road. Let's be a little bit better on the road. Yeah. And also let's be a little bit better in the third quarter. There's that third quarter Achilles heel that we have, right? That, we kind of allow the teams to come back a little bit. I think the great legendary Clyde Frazier said it himself. We have this knack for allowing teams to come back. We never just blow anybody away, or it hardly ever happens. And that, as you said, begins with defense. So as long as we get that going, especially from a bench, not just a starting five, then we can be looking good.
For sure. And look, you do take the quality of opponent this week, at least when they play teams like the Hornets and the Nets. However, look, they gave up 106.3 points allowed per 100 possessions. Defense improved. Now, 3 of those 4 teams that they played shot no better than 30% from 3. So that certainly helped. But I think what's important here is, even, you take the quality of opponent into consideration, you still want to see this team implement good habits so that when they do see Orlando again this week, they tighten up. They're on a string. Their communication that they talked about Deuce talked about their communication has improved. Like, go ahead and implement those things when you play the better teams, and now let's see how they stack up. So, I think it's a good sign, man. Moved up to number 12 in defensive rating this week.
Great sign. And then we'll see what happens against Boston, because I think that regardless of the injury to Tatum or whatever, like, it's still Boston.
Still
it's
dangerous.
The TD Garden. They still hate the Knicks more than anything, and we're still not as good away from MSG. So that's another big test.
For sure. And then, on more good news is that, as you mentioned, they're able to do this both offensively and defensively, but specifically on the defensive side without OG Anunoby, their best defender, and without Landry Shamet, who on the ball and as a scrapper is also a good defender in his own right. So they're down 2 guns right now in their defensive stable and still playing good ball. And we did get a little bit of good news as it relates to OG Anunoby, in that Ian Begley is reporting that OG is participating in 3-on-3 drills and is scrimmaging right now. And he says the next step is 5-on-5 scrimmage, and then we'll see where the dog is. We've reached the 2-week mark where he's set to be reevaluated. Everybody kind of expected that it was going to be a little bit longer, but this does seem like the dog is working his way back.
Yeah, and it's a massive boost, for him to come back. As you mentioned, it's the team's best defender. But overall, the Knicks have rallied together to make up for that. Especially, once again, I have to highlight just how good Josh Hart has been. When he plays well, the Knicks play well. He gives everything 110%, and it's really great and refreshing to see it. I mean, all the way from the point scorage, almost scoring that triple-double, but also like on the rebounds action, because even before, I think against the Bucks, he led in rebounds for the team. Like, this is a very, very, very important addition to have a healthy, happy Josh Hart, especially when we don't have somebody like Anunoby, defensively leading the way.
Yeah, no question about it. And so we'll look forward to the dog coming back. But as you mentioned it, man, Josh Hart, as voted on by the fans, Luis, the player of the week. And, we noted the fact that for Hart, man, he's just come a long way, such a long way from that Chicago game where people are like, man, what's up with Josh Hart? Is he regressing? Yeah, you had some fans like, oh, man, is it time for a trade? Is it time for him to come off the bench? Well, Josh Hart has really resurrected, man. And this week he was a plus minus 76 in 4 games, 17 points per game, 11 rebounds, 7 dimes for Josh Hart, averaged 53% from the field this week and 45% from downtown. Oh, and to go along with 2.8 steals. Josh Hart, man, playing phenomenal ball, as you said, Luis. Phenomenal ball this week, man.
Given all Hart, absolutely, definitely the player of the week. And I think it's important to remember just how sensitive an injury like his leading up to this is. When you hurt your hand, when you hurt your finger, when you it can completely impact the way that not only you play, but the way that you think. And because he's always all heart, pun intended, all effort, all passion, all love, all New York, he knew that not being 100% was going to impede him a little bit. And that's what we saw at the beginning. We were wondering, man, what are we going to do with Josh Hart? But now it seems that he's very healthy. He's feeling good. And to your point, absolutely the ridiculous numbers that he's put up this week. So it's so great to see. When he does well, the Knicks do well.
Yeah, he's looking at the Knicks with the number 3 ranked offense in the league right now, 127.7 points per 100 possessions. Look, this week, Josh Hart has been a big part of that. You could talk about his 3-point shooting, which I just mentioned, his volume. He talked about on the telecast against the Raptors in the win. He said he's shooting it with more confidence, and that's what we all know and we all see is that when Josh Hart is gun shy, he compounds the Knicks' offensive issues, but when he's stepping into those shots with confidence, it opens up everything. It opens up his defense. Then he's attacking the boards. He's pushing the team out in transition. So just being that utility guy that the Knicks need, he's paid off, man. So incredible dividends for this team.
Amen, brother. Nothing more to add to that. It's just great to see Josh Hart just living it up.
Yeah, for sure. And once again, that is Josh Hart, man, our player of the week, as voted on by the fans. Congratulations to Josh Hart. And, Josh Hart being implemented in with the starters. We're having that new starting 5 now with Deuce McBride at the 2. You have Hart, Bridges, and Karl-Anthony Towns. So Mike Brown going a little bit smaller. But what's been your impressions of this lineup, man? It's paying off.
Well, they've lived up to it. They've lived up to it, and they've just basically collectively together been able to, put up the defensive side of things in the absence of, as we just said, of OG Anunoby, but also Landry Shamet, because as you said, he's actually a really good one-on-one defender. And I think that basically Mike Brown is just saying, look, next man up. I'm going to start Deuce on Sunday night, Josh Hart on Sunday night, a slightly smaller rotation. But then what happens? Mitchell Robinson comes in and he gets 15 rebounds in the space of 17 minutes. Albeit at the fact that his minutes are being balanced, but that's the kind of productivity that you're getting. Here's the thing. And it's different, and it's why, and as much as I appreciate and love what Thibs did for us, it's why Mike Brown is here, because he understands that in order to succeed, it can't just be about a 5 or even 6 or 7. You need multiple people contributing. So I think that what I saw, especially in the Sunday night game, a smaller lineup, it didn't really matter because as the flow of the game continued, Mitchell Robinson's game, Jordan Clarkson gave us, a lot of productivity as well. So I think that it's about Mike Brown trusting the fact that he has a bench that can, at the very least, right, help and defend and protect as much as the starters. I mean, I think it's very important to say that at this very moment, Josh Hart has absolutely earned his starting role, coming into it. It'll be interesting to see, depending on what happens against Boston and obviously the following week in the NBA Cup, what Mike Brown is going to do. But I don't think that smaller lineup, bigger lineup, I don't think it matters, because at the end of the day, we've got, a really good bench now that's willing to at least give some productivity. I'm looking at the numbers, at the box score here. Even Yabusele, CP, is contributing as well. So these are all good things. So regardless of what happens in that starting five, eventually what you see is a bench that's allowing the Knicks to be more productive, because we're much deeper than we've ever been in the past few seasons.
Yeah, 100%. And it gives Mike Brown a lot of versatility with the rotations. And he's already shown, now we're only at game 19, he's already showed the ability to really just mix and match. And he's admitted to saying, look, I'm trying to figure these guys out. They're trying to figure me out. And so to me, that's another good sign with this team, is that you have both sides, whether it's coaches and players, trying to figure it out. Players trying to get acclimated to the system, coach trying to understand who he has, and yet and still they're number 2 in the East. Their offense is blazing, and their defense, as of this week, is improving, but without key contributors who was going to make it even stronger. I think they're sitting in a pretty good spot. And I played the soundbite last night after the Knicks win over the Raptors. But for those who missed it, this was Mike Brown's comments on Josh Hart, our player of the week. Here's Mike Brown.
You feel his impact more and more?
Oh, for sure. And I've said this quite a bit. Especially our first 3 losses. I'll take the hit on that, but. As we've been around each other, and the tough part was, I'll even back it up further, he didn't really play in the preseason. And, he didn't even really practice in the preseason. So for me, I was behind the 8 ball, was really trying to figure out how to incorporate him with what we're trying to do. And it just took time, and he was extremely patient with the process. We have a standard, and that's that contract that everybody signed, and it's about sacrifice, connectivity, competitive spirit, but then a belief in each other, but more just as much as that, a belief in the process. And Josh was huge on 2 of those things. His sacrifice was unbelievable, because when I took him out, he just sat. When I called his number, he went out and played. But more importantly, his belief in the process, even if he thought I was wrong, was awesome. And when you're a leader, you have to show that or embrace those types of things more than everybody else, because you got to set the example. And if somebody steps out of the realm of what our standard is, because you did it as a leader, now you can tell them, hey, come back over here, because we all got to do this. I had to go through it. You may have to go through it. This guy may have to go through it. So he's a special player, but he's also a great human being to be around.
All right.
Yeah, CP, that says to me so much about how much Mike Brown respects and appreciates and realizes just how important Josh Hart is to this lineup. And he made a very good point here. He didn't do anything in the preseason, so he had to adjust to everything that was happening at the beginning, and sacrifice, commitment, connectivity, standing up when your number's being counted. Like, those are important things, and those are values that the New York Knicks at their best are like. So congrats to Josh Hart, and it's not just him, everybody is pulling through.
For sure. Definitely, man. Shout out to Josh Hart. And, one other notable thing where I think he is also, contributing where we could see it, whether it's the eye test or the stats, is, one of the things that was interesting when Mike Brown deployed this smaller lineup with Hart and even with Deuce, and it's been kind of the part of the debate in terms of who should start when this team is at full strength. Who should start? Should you start Mitch at the 5? Do you start Deuce at the 2? Do you put Josh Hart back in there with last year's starting 5? And one of the things where, if it's no Mitch, the question is, how well do they rebound? Well, at least this week, and again, this is according to John Showman of NBA.com, they've been able to retain 35.1% of available offensive boards, which is a rate higher than their season-long mark at 34.2. So far, again, small sample size, it hasn't really impacted him all that much.
And it's the little things that matter. I mean, I say that number again to your excellent stats that you just gave there, but against Toronto last night, 25 offensive rebounds. 25. As I said, some teams don't do that in multiple games. Like, they did it in one day, and it just goes to show that they want it more. I mean, there was a great moment when Mikal Bridges stole the ball, ended for a dunk, forcing Toronto to do a timeout. And Mikal was just like pumping in the air like it was a playoff game. It was November. We're entering December. And that's the mentality that you want. You want to fight for everything. And if you're making Madison Square Garden a fortress, tremendous. But now it's time to do exactly what you just did and do it away from home. And to your point from earlier, against, with all due respect, stronger opponents or tougher opponents or more bitter opponents like the Boston Celtics, of course. I don't care how bad Boston plays in the season. When they face the Knicks, they're just more than ready to face them.
That's right. When Jalen Brown and those boys want to turn up, they can. So Tuesday night against Boston is not going to be for the faint of heart, man. Knicks are definitely going to have to be physically and mentally ready, man. And listen, man, speaking of mentally ready, I want to shout out one of our sponsors of today's show, and that is Rula, therapy that fits your schedule, fellas. Because real talk, man, taking care of your mental health shouldn't be harder than hitting the gym. If you get hurt, you tweak your ankle, you go see a doctor. But when life hits you, sometimes you're stressed out at work, or definitely the holidays. The holidays is definitely a time where, for some people it's a joyous time, but for some people, they also kind of, sink low, and especially with daylight savings time, it's getting darker, so things happen. And then suddenly therapy feels like it's impossible to figure out. Sometimes you have long wait lists, you have crazy prices, but that's where Rula comes in. Rula makes therapy simple, fast, and affordable. They work with most major insurance plans, and sessions can cost as little as $15. That's cheaper than lunch, but instead of a sandwich, you're investing in your peace of mind. They've got over 15,000 licensed therapists nationwide, and Rula actually matches you with the right one. No guessing, no wasting time. You could be talking to someone as soon as tomorrow. Thousands of guys have already made the move. Don't keep putting it off. Go to Rula.com/KFTV and get started today. That's RULA.com/KFTV. Take the first step and take control of your mental health with Rula. Okay. All right, man. CP the Fanchise, our guy Luis Miguel Echegaray in the building. Hit the like button, hit the share button, subscribe to the channel. Knicks Weekly. Knicks go 4-0 on the campaign. They'll see the Boston Celtics on Tuesday. We will have a KFTV Game of the Week preview tonight. Knicks versus Boston, so stay tuned for that. Definitely looking forward to that one in the Garden. Have you been to a game up there, man, in Boston?
At the TD Garden? No, yeah. I haven't. Boston, I will say, it's a great city, man. I do know it well, but I've never watched a game there. How about you? Have you seen one?
No, I have not. That's Alex's territory, man. Alex usually goes up there. He represents for KFTV up there in Boston, but I haven't been there. Yeah, I'll certainly like to catch a game for sure. Moving on to our next segment, Miguel. We talked about Josh Hart being the player of the game. We got to get into our new segment, man. We unveiled it just a couple of weeks ago. It's called the Fanchise Forecast, Luis. And that is where we react to some of the players who are heating up and cooling off this week. And look, man, we talked about Josh Hart, but we got to talk about the other roommate when we're talking about heating up. And that is Captain Clutch, Jalen Brunson, Miguel, because the captain is cooking right now. Last year's NBA player, clutch player of the year. Now, the Knicks have not had that many clutch opportunities this year, but Captain Clutch is still cooking in his own right. I mean, you think about the Bucks game, 37 points, 33 against the Hornets, 27 against the Nets, 33 against the Magic in a loss. Look, last night against the Raptors wasn't the greatest, but still a good effort there. 18 points for Cap. 27 points per game, Luis, in the last 4 games. I'm going with Captain Clutch on the Fanchise Forecast as heating up. Your thoughts?
Everything you just said and then some. Jalen Brunson, and this is 2 things. One thing I love about Jalen Brunson. When Mike Brown said, look, we need to talk about it when it comes to the MVP candidate. Obviously, there's tremendous candidates going forward. It's still very early in the season. We haven't even reached the All-Star break, which comes in a few months. But the thing that I love about Jalen Brunson is he doesn't want to hear any of it. Yep. He doesn't care. He wants to win. He wants to win every single day. If he scores 2 points, obviously he's going to look at himself internally and see how he can improve. But ultimately, it's about how he can be a leader, a captain for the team. You mentioned the great numbers that he just had last week, right? But regardless whether he scores 37 points or he scores 18, and by the way, I believe at this point right now, he's averaging a career high of 29 points a game, right? But to me, it's what he gives as an all-round player. We just heard Mike Brown talk about Josh Hart, about how he loves Josh Hart, not just as a player, as a person. Jalen Brunson is that and then some. He is everything that we've wanted. One of my favorite Knicks ever. And I think that the only thing for me that makes me a little bit happier this season is that some of the pressure is being alleviated. When he's not scoring high points, we're still managing to win. You mentioned last night's game. I mean, Jalen Brunson's numbers were not necessarily overwhelming, right? 18 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists. It wasn't necessarily a Jalen Brunson all-star production, but it didn't matter because he was there leading the way, acting like the floor general. And to me, right now, he is absolutely heating up. He's just a player that, whether it's cold or hot, it's going to work out eventually because he's just an absolute star.
Cap has been a stud, man, and watching him Friday night just cooking, especially in person, and just watching him.
What a great game to go to!
Insane. Just watching him step into his bag and unleash that arsenal. You could just see when he has that defender where it's just like there's really nothing you can do. It's like you just got to go get the ball from under the basket because when Cap sizes up that defender, man, and you see the footwork, the separation, the pivots. It's a thing of beauty. It's a thing of beauty. In a game where Giannis was meant to take center stage, it was Jalen Brunson who absolutely took over. Beautiful to see. 28.8 points per game on 43% shooting from three this week for Captain Clutch Jalen Brunson. So that's number one on the Fanchise Forecast, Luis. Number two, heating up. We talked about him a little bit earlier. The deuce was loose this week, Luis. 15.3 points per game, 60% from three on 6 attempts for Miles McBride. Kicked off the Knicks win against the Raptors, set the tone in the first quarter with 4 or 5 from downtown. Deuce is playing ferocious basketball. That's your guy. The last time you came on this show, you talked about Deuce being a vital piece for this team. He's cooking right now. Starter, bench, Deuce is hot right now.
Remember when we were very upset at the departure of Emmanuel Quickley, and we thought, man, what's going to happen with Quick? It's because the Knicks knew that waiting in the wings was Miles McBride. This is a player that's very, very important this season, and we have already shown it. You've talked about the great numbers. He started last night in a smaller lineup, but regardless, he lifted up. I believe it was 4 straight threes, right? This is the kind of productivity that Deuce McBride can give, and he's getting better defensively as well. But the entire week as well, we're looking at 19 points against the Bucks, right? He did the same thing against the Hornets. So he's already alleviating a lot of the pressure from the likes of even Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson, and let's not forget that one of our best, long shooters, Landry Shamet, is not available right now, and he's also delivering. So he's absolutely heating up. He's feeling good. You mentioned in the conversation last night in the post-game press conference, he talks about how, this is about communication and connectivity and just being there for each other. This is what he's doing. He's heating up absolutely, and I'll say it again, just like I said it in the NBA season preview with you, CP. Deuce McBride is going to be very, very important, and he's a fan favorite. Every time he takes that shot, you just hear the entire garden go, Deuce, because you know he's going to give you everything. Very important player for Mike Brown. Fits the Mike Brown system very well, and as long as he stays healthy, he's going to be very important.
True indeed, man. And next up on the hot list, Miguel, we got to give some credit to Tyler Kolic. I know the fans are not expecting Tyler to be on this list. They're expecting gaudy numbers on the Fanchise Forecast, on the heating up list. But we got to talk about Tyler Kolic because with the injuries to OG Anunoby and even Landry Shamet, it's created a next man up scenario where Tyler Kolic has come in and he's playing very well. And the key for Tyler Kolic to get those minutes is, number one, being aggressive offensively, and number two, his defense has been pretty commendable. And the last 4 games, Luis, he's at 5 points per game. He's at 3 assists, 1 steal for Tyler. And as I said, man, he's playing very confident basketball right now. The creator's doing his thing.
Billy Hoyle, that's who I call him. Billy Hoyle, baby. Underrated, undisputed. A person that you just put me in, coach. I'll do whatever I can. He's not going to give you crazy numbers, but that's not his role. That's not who he is. He's there to represent. And to your point, and against Toronto, defensively, he was excellent. By the way, against the Brooklyn Nets, he had 14 points off the bench, so he is contributing. He is delivering. He's just never going to overwhelm you in numbers, but he's the epitome of what we're trying to get the Knicks to be. Hardworking, no ego. I'll try and step up when I can. And as you just mentioned, in terms of what his recent productivity has been, it's going to be very important. And by the way, very important on a bench that is a little thin with guards, right? It's a little, we all expected Malcolm Brogdon to be that backup, veteran backup to Jalen Brunson. It wasn't to be. He retired. So, there had to be a 180, and I think that almost helped Kolic in the sense that he's going to see more minutes. And I'm very happy to see Mike Brown put a lot more trust into him. Obviously, we'll have to see what happens when we play even tougher opponents, but you can't deny the fact that, off the bench, he's trying to do everything he can. He had 14 minutes last night, 6 points. I mean, it's something, and he's trying to make sure, as you said, that defensively he's living up to the standard. So very happy for him.
There it is, Tyler Kolic, Deuce McBride, Jalen Brunson on this week's edition of the Fanchise Forecast, man. Luis, they're saying I gotta, eventually turn this thing into I need a weatherboard back here and get my Al Roker suit. So it's gonna evolve, man. Next time you see us on this segment, I might have on a half suit and everything, and we might get a green screen. So this is evolving, man. But great job. Great job.
I love it. I love it. Just make sure that you let me know when you host the Macy's Thanksgiving parade as well.
That's right. That's right. The Fanchise Forecast. Okay. Good segment. Let's jump Hooper in here. Our guy Hooper on the Discord usually calls in at halftime. He's probably at school or something. Hooper, are you there on the Discord?
Yo, what's up?
How you feeling, man? What's going on, man?
Feeling great. Everything's improving defensively. We're getting our groove.
Yeah.
Looking better.
Yeah, looking better, man. 4-0 on the week.
Yeah.
What'd you think, man?
Yeah, I like this new starting lineup, but I just wonder, what do you think the starting lineup will be when we're fully healthy? Will he go back to the 5-out, the Tips lineup, or is he going to go back to double big?
Yeah, you know what? We talked about that at length on last night's show. Luis, I'll kick it over to you, man. What do you think happens when OG comes back? It's going to be soon. Could be maybe later this week, next week. What do you think?
Yeah, well, let's remember that the injury to OG Anunoby is going to take time for him to be back to 100%. I mean, it's no light thing. Obviously, OG wants to give us 100%. So I'm imagining Mike Brown's going to be very careful with him. So that's one thing when it comes to when he returns. The other things, by the way, Hoops, when we talk about the starting 5, I think a lot also depends on the opposition and what we're facing in front. Let's, for example, use Orlando Magic as an example. Right, a team that have been our thorn so far at the beginning of the season. We haven't been able to break them down because defensively they're so good. So do we match that up with physicality, right? Or do we do a smaller lineup and try and move the ball as much as we can? I just think when OG Anunoby is to his 100%, he starts. There's no question about it. He's our best defensive player, and he gives you something when things are not going our way. And by the way, a pretty good three-point shooter as well, right? So OG has to start. I think, and as I said earlier in the show, then there's the argument for the fact that Josh Hart has done everything up to this point to reclaim a starting role as well. So, I see that it depends a lot on who you're facing, but if OG is 100% healthy, OG starts. Landry might be back on the bench, now with Josh Hart doing so well. But I think OG Anunoby, there's no doubt about it, to 100% CP. He's an absolute starter, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure. And, look, OG's spot will be solidified. But the question will be, once he returns, will Mike Brown look to start Mitchell Robinson again as he has in the past? Does he go with the double big lineup? Or does Josh Hart take that spot and they move Karl Anthony Towns back to the 5, which then you would have last year's original starting 5? I think the
latter.
Right, I think so as well. I think the way that Josh Hart has been playing as of late and the way that Mike Brown has been really singing his praises, I think Josh Hart will remain as a starter. He's given the Knicks points, playmaking, gritty on the boards, and just that guy where, especially when you watch when teams put 2 on the ball on Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart is typically that bailout guy in the short roll to make it play, whether it's to the corners or he's attacking the basket now. So given that he has that confidence in his offense, I find it hard to believe that Josh Hart will go back to the bench, but also because it's not really clear what Mitchell Robinson's workload is going to be as the season progresses. It doesn't seem like we know that they are really going to be keen on how they manage those minutes and his workload. No back-to-backs and things of that nature. He didn't even start the season. So this could be a situation where the Knicks are looking at it as, hey, let's just bring Mitch off the bench. He'll go up against more second-unit guys. He'll still get his shorter amount of minutes. Immediate spurts, as they said, go in, go hard, and then sit down for a little bit. This could be Josh Hart's entryway back into the starting 5. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think it's last season's starting 5. Josh Hart has earned his place. OG comes back. And this is a good thing, by the way, because now look at the bench. When you have Deuce McBride, you have Mitchell Robinson, who's limited right now, but every time he comes on, he's productive. Mike Brown is talking very much to his training team, to everybody involved with making sure that Mitchell Robinson remains healthy, and the minutes are being limited. There's a reason why he only did 17 yesterday. But look what he did. He did a tremendous amount of work in that space, and that's going to be important. Here's the other argument as well, by the way, CP. If you start big with Cat and Mitchell Robinson in the starting 5, you are now risking yourself, right? If one of them gets hurt, what do you have on the bench now? So you're going to be very careful about what you want out of your lineup, but especially in a marathon-esque season such as this one. So I think it's exactly what you said. I think it's Cat, I think it's Josh Hart, I think it's Bridges, Jalen Brunson, and then I think it's Josh Hart. And I think that's the starting 5, and then we'll see what happens when Deuce gets hot or not.
What do you guys think in the chat? Leave us some comments in the chat and let us know. Big debate here. Is Mike Brown going to go back to Mitch at the 5, or will Josh Hart stay in that spot right now? He's playing like a man possessed. I don't think he can come out. Deuce is definitely making a case himself.
Deuce is fighting.
Deuce is making a case. So, but one thing you mentioned was the lack of depth at the center spot. And it was also when we had Alan Hahn on our season preview show, Han Solo asked that question, are we big enough? And to some fans, you're like, oh, man, what do you mean? We got this guy, we got that guy, we got Huck, but Huck's not getting those minutes. So the question is, should the Knicks make a trade by the trade deadline? What would you do, man?
CP, I'm glad you asked this. And I'm sure you have your thoughts, and I've watched your previous shows. Obviously, we'll get into it. But in my opinion, we are now dealing with what will be the most important trade window in recent history, because the Knicks are not building to try and win something next season, 2 seasons. They're looking to win now. The Knicks are looking to get that chip now. So whatever move you make, whatever decision you make is going to affect the entire roster. So whatever happens, right, you need to be very careful. Specifically talking about, do we need to be bigger? I know that the Anthony Davis conversation has been circulated. I personally think that would be a disaster because he is high gamble, mid reward. Because what are you giving up for Anthony Davis, who is injury prone? And we're already familiar with a center who's injury prone. So what will we be giving away in order to get somebody like that who's injury prone? We know about how good he is, but he is an injury prone player. And then what are we giving up for that?
Yeah.
And I'm imagining it's not going to be a light thing, both financially and roster-wise. So to me, you have to be very careful. I've heard about other names, like his teammate Gaffer, like who's more of a forward. What are we giving up for him if that happens? So if we're doing any trade, CP, I think the most important part actually is to maybe try and deepen, the point guard situation. I'm not saying we have to make any decisions, but I think that makes more sense to me because, again, Malcolm Brogdon was meant to be here, but then he chose to retire. So that tells you that the Knicks' initial idea was to have a veteran point guard to back up Jalen Brunson, and then things didn't work out or whatever. So, there's, I like the kid from Chicago, Ayo Dosunmu. Mm-hmm. I think he's not a field general, but he's very productive, right? Close to 48% averages in free throws. He's averaging 16 points a game, something like that. Like somebody like that can maybe help. Javon Carter too, but he's a bit more of an experience, but I don't know if the Bulls are going to want to get rid of him. So again, I go back to my original point, CP, whatever the Knicks decide, and I have full faith in the backroom staff here, that whatever decision they make, whatever they bring in, it has to completely complement the cohesion of the entire roster. And what are you giving up? Personally, Anthony Davis, no. I'm an absolute X on that. I don't want that at all. I don't know what you think, but I don't like it.
Hey, yeah, I'm totally out on the Anthony Davis trade. I think if the Knicks did make a move, it's going to be one of those margin type of deals. That's typically their MO when it comes to the trade deadline. Now, the one exception is a blockbuster trade that they made for OG Anunoby in exchange for RJ and Quickly that they did on New Year's Day,
which worked out,
which was working out for both teams tremendously. But I think this would be somewhat on the margins. And if I'm going to look at one piece, look, you cannot trade in Deuce, you're not trading Mitch, but I look at this Yabusele situation, and look, we're approaching 20 games. It has been a struggle for him. The Knicks are in a great position where it's a luxury to have him right now, not necessarily a need. But I'm the type of person who I'm looking at OG's injury. I'm looking at Josh Hart's wear and tear over an 82-game season. Mikal Bridges continues to be an Iron Man, but you don't want to lean on that. I want to see the Knicks go in with more wing depth. And look, this guy's not going to jump off the charts at anybody, but maybe a guy like a Nicholas Batum, where, look, he's older, he's 37, he's not having the greatest season right now with the Clippers, but the Clippers are having a bad year. But to trade, a struggle for a struggle, but in Batum, you're getting a smarter player, a connector, a career connector, a career timely three-point shooter, and someone who could guard multiple positions, even at this age, still has the smarts to be able to guard multiple spots. I would look to do that. Go French for French. You know what I mean? Yabusele for Batum, like something like that. Because the thing is, even though Batum is struggling a little bit this year, he's averaging 18 minutes a game for the Clippers right now. You don't need that with the Knicks. You know what I'm saying? Like, you need insurance. Someone who, if he is going to play on a given night, if he is number 9.5 in that rotation, maybe it's 6-7 minutes, what Yabusele's getting right now. But again, smarter, connector, more efficient with the ball in his hands, and has the experience, locker room experience for that. When you're going into the playoffs, you battle tested. He's a guy that you can plug and play if you need to, and he may deliver for you in a big spot. I think it's worth the gamble, man.
No, I think it's a good shout, especially a good voice in the locker room too, which is a very important part of this whole thing. I mean, the other way that you can go is go for somebody like, Cam Spencer, if the Grizzlies situation with Ja Morant, kind of gets worse or whatever. But I agree with you. I think it's not going to be this blockbuster thing. I don't want Anthony Davis because you're just going to have to give up so much, meaning that Mike Brown, there is no way that he's going to want that. You can't get rid of the likes of Deuce. Or Mitchell Robinson, just, like I said, you're trying to solve a problem with another problem because it's an injury-ridden center. Perhaps a little more strengthening from the guard. I love your French for French. I think that, having experience and a veteranship in the roster is important as well. And then ultimately, perhaps this is why Tyler Kolic is getting more minutes. Maybe he's being sold around up and maybe he's creating a little buzz here. I'm not sure. I just know this, and I'll end it how I began. This is the most important trade situation season for the Knicks, because the Knicks this season, they're not trying to make the playoffs. They're not trying to, build for something. They're trying to win the whole thing. So you can't mess that up at all, especially with a, first season coach in Mike Brown.
Yeah, for sure. And then, the dollars and cents part of it is where things get very complicated with the Knicks, just based on where their second apron standing is. And it would. I talked to my guy Yossi Gosselin. He's cap expert. Joins our show periodically as well. He said you could do Yabu for Batum. However, you would probably have to you also have to put in a minimum salary there, like a Dottier as well. Now, I've been averse to trading a young player like a Dottier in the past, but as it stands right now, it doesn't seem like the Knicks have much plans for him, and it seems like Diawara has maybe bumped him in the rotation. So if that's the case, and they believe that Diawara has more potential of the two players, and Dottier just sitting there, I don't know. It may be worth a shot, man. And you still have a draft pick coming up in this upcoming draft. Maybe draft another wing and replace Dottier. It seems like it's a waste of a pick right now.
There's a lot of French problems right now. There's a lot of French issues going on.
It's a lot of French. It's a lot of French issues right now, man. No question about it. So, hey, what do you guys think, man? Is it tomatoes or is it a good idea? Nicholas Batum. Let me know your thoughts in the chat. Luis also mentioned a couple candidates. Ayo Dosunmu, Javon Carter. What do you guys think? Or if you guys have some candidates as well, throw it in the chat or leave it in the comment section and we will talk about it. Before we get to our next segment, I got to shout out another sponsor of the show, man, and that is Harry's. Hey, check out Harry's Plus, man. I know a lot of you guys hate shaving. Razors are expensive. Your neck might light up like a Christmas tree with those drugstore blades, or maybe they clog up after like two shaves. So try Harry's Plus, because it is a little bit different, man. The razor has an advanced pivoting system that hits every angle, German engineered blades that cut clean without tugging, and a weighted metal handle that feels premium, real control, real smoothness. It's like a barbershop quality shave right at home. And the best part is it's still affordable. Harry's owns their own blade factory, so they cut out the middleman and keep prices low. Right now, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10. You get the razor, a 5-blade cartridge, shave gel, and a travel cover. Go to harrys.com/KFTV to grab yours. That's harrys.com/KFTV. Support the show and level up your shave with Harry's Plus.
I love Harry's, man. Great razor.
Shout out to Harry's, man. Shout out to Harry's. They have the body wash and things of that nature. So go check them out. Head over to harrys.com/KFTV. Okay, affordable blades and quality razors. Shout out to our guys at Harry's. Okay, Luis. So let's talk about this article in The Athletic. It was by our guy, James Edwards of The Athletic, a.k.a. Trilogy, friend of the program. And in this article, The Athletic says that, or James Edwards of The Athletic says, why the Knicks suddenly look like contenders again. So in The Athletic, they're saying that the Knicks suddenly look like contenders again, speaking on their offensive fluidity, but also the improvements that the Knicks have made defensively. So it's always a topic of conversation and always a topic of debate. Are they contenders? Are they not? Something that, we seem to grade game by game. But what do you think? As you see this team, we're closing in on 20 games. What do you think?
Come on, man. You're going to invite me here, sit down, and tell you that we're not contenders? Absolutely not, bro. The New York Knicks are absolute contenders. And here's the thing. Most narratives and most people, most Knicks fans perhaps, because we've been used to so much disappointment over the years, right? We'll say to you, shh, I want to be under the radar. I don't want to be hyped. Nah, this is New York, baby. We are owning it. And we're doing excellent work. We've literally just spent an entire episode of how much better the Knicks are. There were question marks about Tom Thibodeau's exit. All due respect to what the coach did for us. But Mike Brown's introduction is now creating a deeper New York Knicks. We just talked about how much better they are defensively. We've talked about how they're sharing the rock more. There's a lot more productivity, not just from the starting five, but from the bench. This is a New York Knicks team ready to take over. In that excellent article from James Edwards, he talks about the little things that are being done in order for the Knicks to improve. Things that did not happen in the past, right? Making sure that you step up when you're playing defense, communication, right? Up in your game and rebounds, both offensive and defensively. All these things are happening. Now, are we going to win it? Am I going to stand here and say, yeah, no doubt? Of course not. Oklahoma City Thunder remain the best team in the league, and they're still major competitors on the East side. Nobody expected the Detroit Pistons to be this good, although I think that fire will light out a little bit closer when we head closer to the All-Star break. You know, it wasn't as impressive as the Cleveland Cavaliers, but they didn't win the league last season. The Knicks, as long as they're healthy, because a lot of this, CP, the road to the NBA Finals depends on availability and making sure that there's no major injuries. And we keep talking about Mitchell Robinson and Karl Anthony Towns. We have to make sure they stay healthy, right? Jalen Brunson is an obvious one, right? So we need to make sure that we stay healthy. But if we're healthy, there is absolutely no doubt that we're major contenders. I mean, surely you agree with me that after the Oklahoma City Thunder, we've got plenty of teams, but the New York Knicks are absolutely in that mix. They have to be. They're massively part of the conversation.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. As it relates to the East, I think they're definitely one of the contenders in the East. I mean, look, they've gone through their struggles. They're going to continue to struggle. But as we pointed out earlier in the show, the fact that you have a coach getting acclimated to his players and figuring out a rotation. You have the players trying to figure out the coach's system. And you look at it, and they're number 2 in offense, they're number 12 in defense, and number 4 in net rating. Only 20 games into the season, they're still trying to figure it out. But yet and still, they're in a good spot. Second place in the East. The team is clicking on all cylinders, and they're down guys like OG, their best defender, and one of their better bench player who emerged as a good bench player in Landry Shamet. So once those guys come back, they should be able to pick up where they left off. Now, the schedule is going to get tougher, and this is where you want to see more of the litmus test type of games. I want to see how do they fare against Orlando this weekend at home. They may see Orlando again in the NBA Cup if they have to play in the NBA Cup semifinals. So, you know, all those things leading up to it, like Karl Anthony Towns likened it to a series. They played Orlando. They're going to play Orlando for the 3rd time now in 3 months, and then potentially 4th in the NBA Cup. So that's a good bar. And then ultimately, you still have to play OKC. You got to play the Nuggets. You got to play the Rockets and teams of that caliber. Play the Cavs again for sure. Detroit. So they're going to be tested. But I still, my confidence in this team being a contender has not wavered. And it definitely doesn't go game by game. And also, defense is what I'm here to watch. Stay healthy. And how good can their defense be? I'm not expecting them to be top 5 elite, but if they can hover around that 10, 12 average, right? Like not elite, but like they're not going to let go of the rope, because the thing is that they have, when you factor in the defenders that they have, an OG, Deuce, Mitch, McCall, Josh, right? Those are their 5 best defenders on the team. What Mike Brown needs to do is figure out the optimal rotations to make sure that they are defending at a high level when they need to. You know, making sure they get the clutch stops. They're not going to stop everything. They're not going to stop everybody, but you have 5 guys who you can mix in to get you there and get you the key stops. And then when it comes to the offensive side, Cap and Cat should be able to take you home.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And I think that ultimately, not just offensively, but also what do you do outside of MSG? How do you protect yourself then? Because that's going to be important, because there's going to be sequences in the game away from New York City where you're going to have to step up. And you mentioned the strong defenders that we have, but I think that collectively, even on the bench, we need to step up. And then the other thing is, again, I go back to, we just need to make sure that it's not as bad as it was in the past, but the third quarter problems can sometimes bite us, when we least expect it. But look, man, this is, like I said, the Knicks are not here to just, take a ticket and enter the show. They want to win this whole thing, and I think that we can do it.
We're here to win the whole thing. So what do you guys think in the chat? Have you wavered from contender status with the New York Knicks? Are you there? Are they in line with your expectations? We're 20 games in. We're about to hit the quarter mark. So weigh in, man. Let us know what you guys think, and we will respond to it. Let's take a look at the week ahead, Luis, because as I said, it's going to start getting interesting. The Knicks will take on the Celtics on Tuesday at Boston, home against Charlotte on a back-to-back. Then Friday against Utah, we could pencil that in as a win. And then Sunday, the matchup we're all waiting for against the Orlando Magic. Matinee, 12 noon at Madison Square Garden, man.
That's the one I'm looking for, man. Yeah. I'm going to try and make it to that one, CP. I'm going to try and make it to that
one. What do you think, man? What's your record prediction for this week?
Listen, I don't like to be this guy and say that we're going to win every single game, but if we play the way that we played in last week, especially on Sunday night, there's no reason to think that we can't do something. I mean, the Hornets are 4-14. You mentioned Utah Jazz. I think Orlando Magic is going to be the interesting call, and the Boston Celtics one. Those are the two games that I'm looking at to think like how we're doing here. The Magic we haven't been able to figure out because they've been very stoic defensively, and we've been kind of like deer in the headlights, kind of like how are we going to figure this out. But when I look at the tape of those two games, we didn't share the rock enough. We weren't smooth enough in transition, things that are not familiar with what we can do. So to your point, I think that third time lucky, familiar foe, I think that hopefully we can make it happen. Tomorrow's a tough one against the Celtics. So
yeah.
If we I don't care about, they're not at their strongest, blah, blah, blah. They've made some trades. It doesn't matter, man. It's a divisional rival, somebody that hates you. It's at the TD Garden, like they don't like us. And so I just want to make sure that we show up and bring up the point that you just said, that defensively speaking, the game sandwich in between, that's got to be 2 wins for me. So hopefully, I'm hoping 3-1. But I wouldn't be surprised if we struggle a little bit on Sunday. But obviously hoping to win every single game. But away from home, CP is what I'm looking for here.
Yeah,
and how we stay healthy within it.
I'm with you. Tomorrow night in Boston could get tricky. I'll be good with it with a 3-1. I'll be fantastic 4-0. They could go 4-0.
Yeah,
I'm good with 3-1. But 2-2 would be a little bit disappointing. They got to get this Orlando game, man. They have to.
We have to.
It's a tough matchup, but for this defense, we set the tone today, talking about how good their defense has been. They improved. Showed against Orlando, who the Knicks have had a rough go with this year. Their worst matchup by far. Knicks giving up 127.2 points per 100 possessions, their worst mark versus any opponent over those 2 games against the Magic. So if you want to talk about how good this defense is, go in there and give them a New York Grit beatdown Sunday matinee game, and let them know that we in here. The problem is it's the matchup is tough because Orlando does something that the Knicks have a hard time stopping, and that is put tremendous amount of pressure on the rim. They are active. They have a lot of hustle players, the Batazes of the world, who gets those 50-50 balls, and the Suggs, and he's an energizer. And then the Franz, the Franz matchup. They have not been able to solve it, even when OG played in the first matchup. And it's even worse now if he doesn't play, because Franz at 6'10", he has now arrived, man, and he's found a way to really dominate the Knicks. I didn't like how Mike Brown put Mitch on Franz in that second matchup. I thought that was his worst coaching job of the year. That didn't make sense. They're going to have to figure out how to solve the Franz problem, man. Maybe it's a little more zone. We'll see.
Yeah, because you can't. It's not about being over physical over Franz. It's about being smarter, because he's a very smart player.
That's right.
And more mobile than we give him credit for. So I agree with the zone. They're a very stoic, very gritty type of team, the Magic. But I'm hoping that because now it's at the Garden, that atmosphere will sort of energize the Knicks to be better. And if we had trouble with them because of that pressure that we receive from Orlando Magic, then you just have to be much smarter with the ball, much quicker, and really be confident with your shooting, because it's going to be a key component. But should be a big game. I'm hoping 3-1, like you said, but that game on Sunday is going to be massive.
There it is, man. Well, Luis, excellent show as usual, man. We really broke this thing down. Broke down the week. We hope you guys at home really enjoyed it. And Luis, we got some other action. Look, we got a lot of Knicks games coming up this week, but this is also a big week in the world of football, the real football. Talk to us, man. World Cup drawing. Let's go.
Yeah, I love it, CP. The world of football. That's right. The World Cup draw is this Friday at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. And basically, everybody, this is when every team finds out what groups they're in. And because this is, CP, the largest World Cup in the history of the competition, we got 48 teams now heading over to North America, the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. The U.S. men's national team obviously included, Mexico and Canada, 48 teams. So that means that the World Cup draw will have a massive, massive evening with 12 groups. So it's a massive thing. And then on Saturday, you find out where and when all these teams are playing. So the US, Mexico, Canada hosting, but you've got Spain and Lamine Yamal, Argentina and Lionel Messi, France and Kylian Mbappe. This is going to be a tremendous. It's got the most African teams ever, the most Caribbean teams ever. It's going to be a really special World Cup, a really big one, 48 teams, but that's on Friday. So on Friday from noon Eastern, you'll find out exactly what the World Cup is all about and who the US will be playing in their group. It's not going to be a walk in the park by any means.
Not going to be a walk in the park. My guy, Mellow Mike, he's throwing the Peruvian flag in the chat. Who you guys going for in the World Cup? Throw your flags in the chat. Let us know who you're going for. Luis, my reggae boys didn't make it, man. They flamed out to Curacao with the draw. Jamaica was in an uproar. They were not happy about it. So my reggae boys did not make it. Obviously, I'm tapped in with the U.S. and then my adopted team of Croatia, man. I'm going with Croatia again.
Oh, okay.
They got close last year. Oh yeah. Luka Modric, they got close the last time. Very close. It was very fun to watch. And, that's my time when I watch, when I really watch these things. It's the World Cup. But it's nothing like it, man. Nothing like it.
There is nothing like it. Croatia, they always do well. It doesn't matter what they do, they always do well. They're that hard-working team. They reached the semifinals, of course, last time before Argentina and Messi did their thing. Jamaica, man, well, come join Peru, brother, because we haven't made the World Cup either. We've only made one in the last, 36 years. It's ridiculous, but it's going to be a very special one. So, and the United States men's national team are looking pretty good these days under head coach Mauricio Pochettino, who used to be the head coach of PSG, of Tottenham. This is a very, very good manager, very good head coach. So the U.S., you never know what could they do, but it all depends on who's in their group. It's going to be a tough one. A lot of really good teams. I mean, my tip for everybody is I want you to watch out for two teams here. One of them is Morocco. This is a very good team.
Okay.
And at the World Cup in 2022, they became the first African and Arab nation to reach the semifinals. This is a very, very good team. Tremendous talent. And then the other one, because I did a power rankings for Yahoo a few weeks ago, and I kept getting screamed at, why are you putting them there? It's like they have no idea what they're dealing with. Watch out for Japan. This is a good team, and they are ready to make some noise. Remember, they beat Germany and Spain to top their group in the last World Cup. There's no reason to think that maybe they might do some noise here, but it's going to be a great World Cup. We'll see what happens. The draw is on Friday.
Luis dropping the heat. For the Peace in the chat throws a Japanese flag in there. So For the Peace says, you know what time it is. Luis giving us some curveballs. Morocco and Japan. And for you people at home, I highly, highly encourage you to follow our guy Luis, man, as the World Cup drawing hits on Friday and everything going on between now to the end of the tournament. Our guy Luis will have you covered. The passion, the energy, the knowledge, the insight, and also pick up his book, Messi Mania. Luis, hold up the book, man.
Messi Mania, baby.
Messi Mania.
And by the way, CP, this Saturday, Inter Miami are playing in their first ever MLS Cup final against Vancouver Whitecaps. Messi's first MLS Cup. And this is the book, all about his journey and, of course, his arrival to Inter Miami in the U.S.
Excellent work, man. And we'll catch up along the journey, catch us up on what's going on. But let's go Knicks in the meantime, man.
Let's go Knicks, baby. Captain Clutch every single time.
Salute to the replay gang. Remember that these shows are available in audio podcast format, and we'll see you guys tonight. Game of the week preview, Knicks versus Celtics. And we'll see you guys later, man. Have a